Welcome to another episode of Grizzly True Crime. My name is Gisela K, and today we're going to continue to look at the case of Cinsere and classic Pettis, known in the media as Orrin and Orson West. The reason that I think it's so important to refer to them by their biological names is not only because their biological families are in tremendous pain and really wish that people would refer to them by their biological names, but also because if you think about it, Trezell and Jacquiline West adopted these boys and named them Orrin and Orson and murdered them, allegedly. Of course, they were arraigned in court today. They pleaded not guilty. There's no bail, and their trial's been set for, I believe, May 23rd, but they say that may be postponed, so we'll keep an eye on that. However, to think that these evil monsters gave them those names, I can understand with greatest empathy why their biological family would love for the media to refer to them by their actual names, Cinsere and classic Pettis. So if we as a community can please keep doing that, that would be amazing. I want my channel to be safe, not only for someone who hasn't quite, gone into true crime before and they just want to check it out. I want it to be safe, untriggering, gentle, filled with empathy. The respect that these crime cases deserve. It's not a party. It's not a meme. We're covering crime, horrendous crime that happened to other human beings and, oh man, in this case to children. So of course this does come with a trigger warning. This is adult content and there are some topics that are sensitive, but I'm going to cover it always in the most gentle way that I possibly can. So I thank you for keeping it grizzly. That's what my hoodie says too, keep it grizzly. Keep it grizzly means keep that standard. Let's continue to be kind, respectful, empathic, to honor the victims and their families and welcome them to the space. Because a lot of times they'll watch these videos to see what's being said out in the media. And it will be an absolute breath of fresh air if we can refer to Orrin and Orson by their real names, Cinsere and classic Pettis. So let's get started. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you are new here, then welcome to the Grizzly community. And if you're already a Grizzly, then welcome back. It's always nice to see you. If you enjoy the way that I cover true crime, please do leave your DNA on the thumbs up button. That would be amazing. And I do look forward to reading your comments as well as we cover this case. First, I'm going to show you this little thing I mentioned yesterday of what if the boys were actually adopted by Trezell and Jacquiline in September of 2020. The reason I said that was because there were some articles and some sources that I found that mentioned that. And there is actually a news clip from kget.com, one of the main news channels, 17 KGET, right, that covered the case and is still covering the case. They've got an extensive timeline on the case. They've updated it today. They're on the ball. But if we look at what they initially released here, when they interviewed the biological father of these boys, it becomes very interesting. Let me show you. I will link this clip below for you, and it's from around the 37-second mark. Watch this.
They'll be found safe.
So I don't want my kids to be deceased. I want them to come back home because my kids is all I got. After my parents go, it's just me and my kids.
Charles Pettis is the biological father of Orrin and Orson, whose birth names were Classic and Cinsere. The boys were removed from their biological mother's home by Child Protective Services and adopted by Trezell and Jacquiline West in September of 2020.
I'm sorry, what? When? Say that again?
West in September of 2020.
In September of 2020? And the indictment says that the boys were murdered between the 1st and the 30th of September 2020? One more time, please.
And adopted by Trezell and Jacquiline West in September of 2020.
I was going through family members' phones and they were showing it and we watched the news and that's how we found out. We didn't even know that they sent them out to some different people.
The West report.
Did you hear that? We didn't even know that they'd sent them off to some different people. This is very important. Look.
And we watched the news and that's how we found out. We didn't even know that they sent them out to some different people.
The West reported Orrin and Orson missing from their...
We didn't even know that they sent them off to some different people. That to me sounds like somebody else that adopted them first or fostered them first, someone else, maybe an extended family member of Trezell and Jacquiline. And then this is how they got hold of these kids. And I'm speculating that it's not only Trezell and Jacquiline involved in whatever's going on here. Now, as I say, I'm waiting for a high quality PDF version of the indictment. Thank you so much to Latoya for sending me a link to the indictment, which was shared on Facebook. I'm not able to share it with you guys because it's just like way too blurry. You won't be able to read it from that Facebook page that shared it. But I did write some things down. And let me just take this off the screen for a second. So in this indictment, it's very, very sad to read because it's more details. The more we learn, the more sinister everything really sounds. And they say that Trezell and Jacquiline murdered the boys with malice. They say with malice, afterthought, murdered. And then they list the victims. So they obviously do them separately in this indictment, but with malice, afterthought, okay, with great violence, a threat of great bodily harm, or other acts disclosing a high degree of viciousness and callousness. And then there's this little sentence that says that they also induced others to participate in the commission of the crime. Sounds like a group thing to me. It's reminding me a lot of the Kamari Holland case. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just check out my videos. I did cover the Kamari Holland case, and that was devastating to learn what really happened there. And Kamari's mother was very much involved. And they say, or Trezell and Jacquiline occupied a position of leadership or dominance in this inducing others to participate scene. That's not how they worded it, but I just wrote down some notes here. But that's what they were saying, that they were occupying a position of leadership or dominance. That sounds very, very bad. Now, the reason I also want to build on that theory is, if we look at this article from the Daily Beast, they say adoptive parents accused of murdering precious little boys months before they vanished. I mean, they are precious. I think they put them precious like that because someone else quoted it like that, but they were precious little boys. And they say 2 little boys, so just hold on for a second. Go with me here. 2 little boys in California were dead for at least 3 months before their adoptive parents reported them missing, falsely as we now know, in December of 2020, authorities announced. Speaking to reporters at a press conference on Wednesday, Kern County District Attorney, who we love, Cynthia Zimmer, said the remains of 4-year-old Orrin West and 3-year-old Orson West. Okay, thankfully they say here whose birth names were Classic and Cinsere Pettis have not been located. So that was devastating news yesterday to learn that their bodies have not actually even been located. So they must have some hard evidence on these 2 monsters that did this. Now I just want to point out the spelling of Cinsere here, because this, when I shared in my episode yesterday, the biological mother's little clip from, I think it was from a Facebook post of hers, that is how she spelt Cinsere's name. So I've seen a lot of articles listing it as Cincere. So for the grammar, punctuation, spelling police, the reason that I spell it with an S as well is because that is how their mother actually spelt it. So I don't think that would just be a typo, especially if she's like ranting validly on social media. This is how she spelled it, Classic and Cinsere Pettis, and I'm very happy to see that the Daily Beast also spelled it this way. Then they say, however, I would like to emphasize that the fact that law enforcement has not found their bodies does not preclude a murder prosecution, Zimmer said, declining to say if investigators know how they died. Trezell Philip West, so now we know his middle name too. I think that's also the name of his father. And Jacqueline Gabrielle West, 32, who took in the children as foster parents in 2018. Now, that's what they say. But as I showed you, some reports say September 2020. And here they say, following a report of abuse by an extended family member, and adopted them the following year. That extended family member sentence, I'm like, who? Is it one of their extended family members? Now, again, this will open up a whole can of worms, and I'm not here to spread conspiracy or rumor or throw anyone under the bus that shouldn't be thrown under the bus. I'm just wondering at this point, could it be true? Because this is what goes around. I can't find that evidence. If you can, please let me know. But allegedly, the mother of Trezell and the mother of Jacquiline had worked at CPS in Kern County. Now, what I can find on Wanda West, the mother of Trezell, is that she did work in Kern County. I can't confirm whether it's CPS, but it seems like she retired in 2009. I mean, she was 65 years old at the time that the boys went missing, which means she's 67 now. But I do worry about the foot in the door, you know, that the extended families may have. I do also worry that if they have a foot in the door, who else has adopted kids and what's happened to those kids? I'm worried that this is a much bigger thing than what we can imagine at this point. I mean, I really hope not. But even the way that the indictment is worded, the fact that Wanda West had a fire at her house in June of 2020, which is rumored to be an attempt to, I don't know, burn certain things. Apparently a car seat was missing, or I don't know. I'm not going to get too much into that side of things. I'm just like, interesting, very interesting. And the fact that Trezell and Jacquiline were visiting an adult store. I mean, we don't know. That was just one time they were caught on camera. I mean, they might have gone on the day they reported they're missing. They might have gone the next day, or the next day, or every week, or we don't know the actual movements and activities. But to think that while the searches were going on, they went to visit an adult store together, that's what was on their minds. That's very, very sickening. So I really, really worry about what actually went on here. So if you want to read this entire article, I will link this below for you as well. Of course, we'll look at this timeline quickly here from KGET, where I just want to show you the update that says Trezell and Jacquiline West are due in court for the official arraignment that happened today. They plead not guilty. Could someone please, for once, just own up to what you did? I know that it would be it's kind of like them throwing their whole life away, but you took the lives of these innocent children, and what about others? What if they're involved in more cases that we don't know about? A lot of kids go missing, and people just never know what happened to them. And can you imagine how many kids in foster care go missing? I actually think that's the saddest thing in the world. There's so many cases of children being abandoned, being put into child protective services, and then being adopted and completely abused. I mean, I think it's so terrible. They didn't ask to be born. None of us did. We don't ask to be here. We're just kind of forced to live this life. And sorry if that sounds very depressing, but it's true. So to think that they are born into this world and then abandoned, put in these foster homes, and often in and out these foster homes, and then it's just trauma on trauma on trauma. I mean, it's terrible. So yes, if you want to check out this timeline as well, I will link this below as well. I would also recommend, if you haven't yet checked out my video from yesterday, or even if you just want a refresher, please check that out. I worked very, very hard on making that presentation for you. Everything that I do, of course, takes, I don't want to be one of those that says this all the time, but it really takes a lot of research, a lot of hours, a lot of putting things together. So I would really like it if you haven't seen it yet. If you would, just be willing to watch it. That would be great. And leave your DNA on the thumbs up. And then I want to show you, this is an expansion of the update. Cal City boys Trezell and Jacquiline West plead not guilty. Bakersfield, California, 15 months after they stood in front of their California city home begging for help finding their two young adopted sons, Trezell and Jacquiline West on Thursday pleaded not guilty to murder in the boys' deaths. I mean, could her eyes look more dead? I know she spent some time, not that much time yet. She was only arrested freaking yesterday. I was going to say, I know she spent some time in jail. Whoa, this is what you look like after one day? You got a long journey ahead of you, lady. The Wests entered not guilty pleas to 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of willful cruelty to a child, and falsely reporting an emergency. They were arrested Tuesday after being indicted by a grand jury. Judge Chad Louis ordered them held without bail and scheduled the trial for May 23rd, but given that the defense counsel has only just been assigned, the date will likely be postponed. But we'll be here for it. Oh my word, can you imagine the moment that they're actually sentenced for what they allegedly have done? Wow. Trezell West is represented by Timothy Hennessy, Jacquiline West by Alexia Torres Stallings, and prosecutor Eric Smith asked that all offense reports be sealed and a gag order issued barring attorneys, investigators, and witnesses from publicly commenting on evidence. Okay, a motion on the gag order is scheduled next week. So yesterday we were all wondering, will there be a gag order? Yes, there is one. Prosecutors have said that the boys, Cinsere and Classic, were killed 3 months before they were reported missing, so September 2020. Their bodies have not been found. Trezell West, 35, told authorities the boys were playing outside while he gathered firewood on December 21st, 2020. He said he briefly went inside. When he came back out, the boys had vanished. But did you notice how he contradicted himself? I mean, he was literally like, it was cold. I was going to make a fire. A lot of firewood in these fields, and no, there isn't. If you really look at the area, there's not a lot of firewood just lying around. What the hell, dude? A lot of firewood in these areas around the house. Okay, and then he said they thought it was a good idea that the 2 youngest kids go outside in the dark and cold to play with chalk. That's what he said. Now, I've never had kids, but for me, in my mind, I'm like, toddlers outside in the dark and cold playing with chalk, which could be a toxic substance, right? I think it is. I mean, they could choke it on it. They could eat too much of it. You just don't know what kids are going to do. They could just be drawing. But however, on the aerial photographs that I've seen, which I cannot confirm exactly when they were taken, but it seems to have been taken like very shortly after this missing person's report was filed for them, I don't see any chalk drawings. Do you? I've never heard of the actual chalk drawings. There's no sign of the chalk. That's interesting to me. Now, I know a lot of people have been speculating about what the chalk drawings were and what if they simulated there could be chalk drawings. However, there's that one little rumor that what if chalk was actually a dog? And I'm going to show you a channel that I referred to earlier. This guy is, you know, in the Brian Laundrie, it's actually the Gabby Petito case, but you know that Doug from Northport, Florida? You know him, right? Driving around, still searching to see if he can find Gabby and Brian's cell phones, going around the Carlton Reserve area, and just, it's very interesting to watch if you haven't watched that. This guy is kind of like Doug from Northport, Florida in this case. He's kind of the Anthony Greeno, like in the Delphi case, of this case. And shout out to all those content creators. So let me just show you what he filmed, okay? Watch this. Okay, so here we've got the grandpa, which I believe his name is Philip West. And I don't know who this other guy is in the blue hoodie. It could be Jamal, the brother of Trezell. I'm not too sure, but watch this.
Is that dog's name Chalk? Hey, Chalk.
Did you see that? Look. Watch the dog. Just watch the dog. That's all I ask. And no, the dog could respond to anything, but this guy had been talking to these guys for quite some time. There was a video before this too. There were actually quite a few people filming them and trying to get them to talk. You know, like when people were a little bit harassing the Laundries to try to get them to talk, given the situation. Same here. But this was the only time he said, hey, is that dog's name Chalk? And that's the only time the dog's ears went up and he turned his head and looked right at him. Look at this.
Human help. Is that dog's name Chalk? Hey, Chalk. Chalk.
Did you see that? I'm going to link this guy's channel and video below as well, if you want to go check out the full video and all of his drive-alongs. He is the one that I referred to in my short video where I said that he's actually driven out to the court and he was the first source I saw where he came out and said, yep, they've got no bail. Like, all right, we're on the news. So if you want to be kind of at the front line of the news from someone who's local and following the case, I would recommend checking out his channel, definitely. Okay, and then the last thing that I want to share with you today is the 11 pages listed here. It's the lawsuit filed from the biological parents to Kern County's CPS. Thank you so much to Amy Bauer for sending this to me. I really appreciate it. If you are in the United States of America, any Grizzly watching, and you find that Trezell West and Jacquiline West had any criminal records, because that's the rumor, if you find that, please send it to me. If you find any very important documents pertaining to this case or any case I cover, please send that to me. I really appreciate it. So let's go through this. Superior Court of the State of California, County of Kern Metropolitan Division. Charles A. Pettis, an individual, and Brenda Pettis, an individual. These are the plaintiffs, right? Complaint: negligence, negligent hiring, training, or supervision, negligent undertaking, and wrongful death. So the plaintiffs versus the County of Kern, Kern County Children Protective Services, California Children Protective Services, and State of California, and does 1 through 100 inclusive. Defendants and Ryan Dean, an individual, nominal defendant. Jury trial demanded. Plaintiffs: Charles A. Pettis, Mr. Pettis, and Brenda Pettis, Miss Pettis, by and through their attorneys of record, bring this complaint against the above-named defendants and in support alleges as follows. Plaintiffs bring this civil action seeking compensatory and punitive damages against defendants for negligence and the negligent hiring, training, and supervision of DOE defendants in connection with the removal and placement of the plaintiff's children and grandchildren, causing irreparable and severe emotional distress, all of which affect the plaintiffs for the remainder of their lives. On the evening of December 21st, 2020, plaintiffs' children and grandchildren were reported missing after defendants placed the children with foster and subsequent adoptive parents. The disappearance of the 2 minor children has resulted in search efforts from police authorities, FBI, community agencies, and other law enforcement agencies. Plaintiffs have continued search efforts for over 8 months, and the 2 minor children are now presumably deceased. The defendants, the agent, employee, servant, employer, master, principal, respondent, superior, and or associate, and each of them violated policies and procedures in the removal and placement, which resulted in the negligent placement of the Pettis children and subsequently their disappearance and possible death. Parties: Mr. Charles A. Pettis is an individual and is now and at all times mentioned in this complaint was a resident of Kern County, California. Mr. Pettis is the father and rightful heir of Cinsere, see how they spell it, and Classic Pettis, and is entitled to bring an action for the deaths of Cinsere and Classic Pettis pursuant to, is that a number, 377.6 of the California Code of Civil Procedure in interest to Cinsere and Classic Pettis under California Code of Civil Proceedings 37730. Miss Brenda Pettis is an individual and is now a resident of Hamilton County, Tennessee. However, at all times mentioned in this complaint was a resident of Kern County, California. Miss Pettis is the biological grandmother and rightful heir of Cinsere and Classic Pettis and is entitled to bring and for the deaths of Cinsere and Classic Pettis pursuant to 377.60 of the California Code of Civil Procedure in the interest to Cinsere and Classic Pettis under California Code of Civil Procedures 37730. Defendant, County of Kern, and at all times herein mentioned was a municipal corporation duly organized and existing under the laws of the State of California and situated in the State of California. The defendant's Kern County Children Protective Services was and is a government entity organized and existing under the laws of the State of California and duly licensed and authorized to do business in the State of California. Defendant California Children Protective Services was and is a government entity organized and existing under the laws of the State of California and duly licensed and authorized to do business in the State of California. Nominal defendant Ryan Dean was and is the biological mother of Cinsere and Classic Pettis, and at all times mentioned in this complaint was a resident of Kern County, California, and is being named as a nominal defendant pursuant to California Code Civil Procedure 382. On June 21st, 2021, the plaintiff timely served on defendant County of Kern a tort claim in accordance with Government Code 910911.2. Defendants Kern County CPS and California CPS are, and at all times herein mentioned, was an agency and department of the defendant's state of California and county of Kern. The plaintiff sues DOES 1 right through 100, inclusive herein under fictitious names. Plaintiff does not know their true names and capacities. When a plaintiff ascertains the DOE defendant's true names and capacities, plaintiff will amend this complaint by inserting their true names and capacities. Okay, so they're just going through all of this. I know we normally go through it line by line, but I just want to, they're obviously explaining what each term is, right? So the plaintiff is informed and believes, and on the basis of that information and belief alleges that each of the defendants such herein are the agents, servants, employees, licenses, guarantees, invitees, or signees of each other, and in doing the things herein alleged acted within the course and scope of such agency, employment, guarantee, assignment, license, invitation, and or relationship, and with full knowledge and consent of the other. Okay. So let's look at the jurisdiction and venue. Jurisdiction and venue are proper in the Superior Court for the County of Kern pursuant to Section 410.10 of the Code of Civil Procedure and Section 395A of the Code of Civil Procedure, because all of the claims alleged herein arose in Kern County. Venue is proper in the County of Kern pursuant to Section 395 of the California Code of Civil Procedure, because defendants does business in, and all incidents, events, and occurrences giving rise to this action occurred in the County of Kern, California. The amount in controversy in this matter exceeds the sum of $25,000, exclusive of interest and costs. Let me know what your thoughts are on them filing this lawsuit. Factual allegations. In 2018, Mr. Pettis and biological mother, parents of Cinsere and Classic Pettis, had their children taken from their custody by the defendants due to an investigation regarding, I don't want to say that trigger word right now. You can see it there, abs, with another family member. Due to an investigation regarding with another family member. The Pettis children were not being watched by a relative family member at the time of the alleged incident and was not under the supervision of any of the aforementioned plaintiffs at the time of the alleged, I'm just going to say abs for that word, okay? At the time of the defendant's investigation, there were no prior allegations of this. The biological mother did not have a criminal record nor a complicated, sullied background. However, the children were removed from their biological family's care due to the alleged incident. The strain of this investigation and the loss of their children aided in the separation of Mr. Pettis and the biological mother, and Cinsere and Classic were consequently placed with a foster family. In late 2018, the defendants placed two minor children. Oh, there we go. It's right here. I should have read this first. In late 2018, the defendants placed the two minor children with Trezell and Jacquiline West. Mr. Pettis lost contact with the biological mother after the children were removed, and she has not seen the children since the end of 2018. In 2019, Ms. Pettis made defendant Kern County CPS aware that she desired to take custody of her paternal grandchildren. Due to the nature of the defendant's placement process, the plaintiffs were not privy to vetting process regarding the Wests as qualified adoptive parents or the factors in which the defendants made the determination not to place the children with relative family members. Despite the defendants being aware that the plaintiffs desired to gain or regain custody, Ms. Pettis was not given custody of the children, neither was custody given to nor parental rights restored for Mr. Pettis or the biological mother. The Wests were allowed to adopt the children and subsequently changed their names to Orson and Orrin West. The West family had two biological children of their own and 4 adoptive children, including Orson and Orrin. On Monday, December 21st, 2020, the West's other 4 children were at their grandparents' home. However, Orson, Cinsere, and Orrin, Classic, were at the West house with Mr. and Mrs. West, allegedly due to their young ages, 3 and 4 respectively. At approximately 4 p.m. on the evening of December 21st, the young children, ages 3 and 4 at the time, were left alone, unsupervised outside when they were last seen. The young 2 children were sent outside unsupervised to play while Mr. and Mrs. West remained in the home wrapping Christmas presents or gathering firewood. Shame. We don't even have to really read through that because we know it's all false now. That's what they believed, right? That's the only story they had. But now we know that literally never happened. It was a false report of this emergency. Here they said approximately 4:30 p.m. the children were no longer in the yard, and Mr. West alleges that he accidentally left a gate or door open. Soon thereafter, the police were notified and along with the neighborhood began canvassing the area. But no one heard them shouting, right? I've also seen that allegedly Trezell thought it was quite funny to walk around saying he's looking for 2 little black puppies. That's just rumor. That's what I've seen. And I'm just like, what? At the time. But he wasn't shouting for his kids or anything like that. He was just walking around. He did a 6-minute drive, as we know. What's also interesting is that the neighbors said, yeah, they know that their camera footage is an hour out. But here they said approximately 4:30 p.m. So maybe the biological parents and the biological grandmother of these 2 boys saw the footage and they're basing that on this. But there is also room for speculation because apparently some of the neighbors that had footage wanted to delete it or something. They don't want that out there. However, why? What's going on? Meaning, what if it was at 4:30 p.m.? I don't know. I'm going to go on what the police chief said, and he said that the neighbor said the video was an hour out, and so it was actually around 5:30 p.m. that the boys were no longer in the yard, except they were never there. They were not in the yard at all. All of it was a lie. The minor children still have not been found, and at this time are missing, presumed kidnapped, or even worse, dead. First cause of action, negligence. California Government Code 820 and California Common Law against all defendants and does 1 to 100. Plaintiff realleges and incorporates by reference all paragraphs previously alleged as though they are set forth in herein. So here they say defendants had a duty to the plaintiffs to investigate the safety of both the Pettis homes, welfare of the children, and the safety of the environment, to act reasonable to ensure that the plaintiff's children and grandchildren were in safe, but negligently failed when the defendants removed the Pettis children from the care of any biological relative family members. I mean, to have 6 kids in an apartment is also quite strange. For them to just be like, yep, that's perfectly fine, right? Defendants had a duty to evaluate and assess the safety of the environment in the Pettis family home, as well as the safety of the home of the West home, to ensure proper removal of and the safe placement of the minor children, but negligently failed when the defendants placed the Pettis children in a dangerous environment which led to their disappearance. Defendants Kern County CPS and California CPS had a duty to the plaintiffs under higher standards as child protective agents to ensure that the Pettis children reside in a safe environment or with relative family members, but negligently failed to follow policy and procedure when they removed the Pettis children, did not place them with any relative family members, and placed the children in a home where they would later disappear and be presumed deceased shortly thereafter. The defendants failed to properly provide the safest environment for the Pettis children. As a direct and proximate result of the negligence of the defendants as said above, plaintiffs suffered the removal and subsequent loss and disappearance of their children and grandchildren who are now missing and possibly presumed deceased. As a further direct and proximate result of the negligence of the defendants as set forth above, plaintiffs suffered severe emotional distress, and the negligence of the defendants were a substantial factor in causing plaintiffs severe emotional anguish. The negligent acts and omissions detailed above of the defendants, and is that how we say the DOES, 1 to 100, inclusive, and each of them was a substantial factor in bringing about and resulting in the disappearance of the Pettis children, possibly death, and the plaintiff's harm. Defendant's negligence was a substantial factor in causing the plaintiff's harm. As a direct and proximate cause of the aforementioned negligence, the defendants and those 1 to 100 inclusive, and each of them, plaintiffs suffered and will continue to suffer extreme and severe distress, pain, anguish, and other economic and non-economic damages, including the deprivation of the children's love, companionship, comfort, care, assistance, protection, affection, and moral support in amounts to be determined at trial. And then they also have similar charges for the County of Kern, State of California, Kern County CPS. Okay, California CPS negligently hired, trained, and supervised the defendant DOES 1 to 100. The defendants failed to hire DOE defendants who were competently experienced with evaluating and assessing dangerous conditions, environments, and the best interest of the children under the purview of the defendant's agency. Defendants failed to train DOE defendants regarding how to competently investigate the background of the foster and subsequent adoptive parents to ensure a safe environment, and failed to assess and evaluate for dangerous conditions in the best interest of the minor Pettis children prior to placement. The defendants failed to supervise DOE defendants regarding the removal process of the Pettis children from the biological relatives. The defendants also failed to supervise the DOE defendants in regards to evaluating and assessing the safety of the future placement, family, and home of the minor Pettis children. The defendants should have known that DOE defendants were not adequately trained and lacked the ability to evaluate and assess dangerous conditions, and that this inadequacy, inability, or incompetence to properly investigate would pose a risk to the children in their care. I hope that this makes some waves in how things are dealt with there, right? As a direct and proximate result of DOE defendants' inadequate training or incompetence, the plaintiffs suffered the loss of their children and grandchildren, who are now missing and presumably deceased. Unfortunately, no, we know that they are deceased. As a further direct and proximate result of the negligent hiring, training, and supervision of the defendants as said above, the plaintiffs have suffered serious emotional distress, and that the negligence in the hiring, training, and supervision of the defendants was a substantial factor in causing the plaintiffs serious emotional anguish. As a result and proximate cause of the aforementioned negligence, defendants and DOEists 1 to 100 inclusive, and each of them, plaintiffs suffered and will continue to suffer extreme and severe distress, pain, anguish, and other economic and non-economic damages, including the deprivation of the children's love, companionship, comfort, care, assistance, protection, affection, and moral support. The deprivation of the children's love, comfort. I don't know why they say protection and assistance, but okay. Let's not nitpick that now. Third cause of action, negligent undertaking. Against all the defendants, the plaintiff realleges and incorporates by reference all paragraphs previously alleged as though they were set forth in full herein. The defendants voluntarily rendered services for the protection of the Pettis children. The services were of a kind that the defendants knew or should have known to be recognized as needed for protection of the Pettis children. The defendants failed to exercise reasonable care in rendering child protection. It is child protection services. And they definitely did not protect these boys. The defendants negligently placed the Pettis children in conditions that caused the disappearance and subsequent death. The negligent acts and omissions detailed above defendants and DOES, DOEs 1 to 100 inclusive, and each of them was a substantial factor in bringing about and resulting in the plaintiff's injuries and losses. As a direct and proximate result of the defendant's negligent placement, the plaintiffs suffered the loss of their children and grandchildren as they are now missing. As a direct and proximate result of the defendant's failure to exercise reasonable care, the plaintiff's children are presumed deceased. As a direct and proximate result of the aforementioned negligence of defendants and DOEs 1 to 100 inclusive, and each of them, plaintiffs have sustained general economic and non-economic damages in amounts to be determined at the trial. And the fourth cause of action was wrongful death. Plaintiff realleges and incorporates by reference all paragraphs previously alleged as though they were set forth in full herein. Defendants and DOEs 1 to 100 inclusive, and each of them owed a duty of care to decedents Cinsere and Classic Pettis and plaintiffs in the evaluation and assessment of dangerous conditions of the plaintiff's homes and care, as well as the assessment of the best interest of the minor Pettis children. Defendants and DOEs 1 to 100 inclusive, and each of them were also under a duty to use reasonable care in the evaluation and assessment of dangerous conditions of foster families for the minor Pettis children. They were also under a heightened duty to exercise reasonable care as CPS in the evaluation and assessment any dangerous conditions in regards to permanent placement of the Pettis children with an adoptive family. As a result of the defendant's negligent and unlawful removal and permanent placement of the minor Pettis, plaintiffs are the sole and lawful heirs under California Code Civil Procedure 37760. They negligently removed the Pettis children from the care of their biological family so as to directly and proximately cause the unsafe conditions leading to the children's disappearance. The defendants and those 1 to 100 inclusive, and each of them negligently placed the Pettis children in the care of an adoptive family so as to directly and proximately cause the subsequent death of the minor children, Cinsere and Classic Pettis. As a direct and proximate result of the defendants and those 1 to 100 inclusive, and each of them, Cinsere and Classic, disappeared from the care of the West family. They are presumed deceased. The plaintiffs have suffered economic damages and non-economic damages from the loss of the 2 minor Pettis children's love, companionship, comfort, care, assistance, protection, and affection, and moral support. As a proximate result of the negligence of the defendants and those 1 to 100, the plaintiffs suffered extreme and severe emotional distress, pain and anguish, and other economic and non-economic damages to be proven at trial. Due to the defendant's negligence resulting in the wrongful death of the 2 minor Pettis children, the plaintiffs hereby seek recovery of other relief as may be just and provided under the California Code Civil Procedure 37761. And here they say, prayer for relief. Wherefore, the plaintiffs respectfully prays for judgment against the defendants on all causes of actions as follows: for compensatory damages in an amount to be determined according to proof at trial, for special damages in an amount to be determined according to proof at trial, for general damages in an amount to be determined according to proof at trial, for pre-judgment interest, for costs of this suit incurred, statutory damages as permitted by law, actual damages, and for such other and further relief as this court may deem just and proper. Dated September 10th, 2021. Okay, Antonio Castillo, attorneys for plaintiff Brenda Pettis and Charles Pettis. Wow. I've just had another look to see if there's any other news right now. That's it for now. I will report back if there's anything else, but for now we know that the parents, there's no bail. They have pleaded not guilty. The trial for them has been set for May 23rd, but it may be postponed. And for now, if there's anything else that I can share, for instance, if I get my hands on the indictment, I will be sharing that with you and reading that through with you as well. And mostly, my heart just goes out to the families of Cinsere and Classic Pettis. This is a tremendous loss. To think that their children were taken away from them for whatever reason, and that they ended up being allegedly murdered by those 2 adoptive parents, and that they would stand there in front of the media and tell us that whole little story. It's absolutely appalling. So I can't wait for the trial. I can't wait to see what their sentencing actually is. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for watching. If you like the way that I present true crime, please do leave your DNA on the thumbs up, which means click the thumbs up if you will. And I'm looking forward to reading your comments. Please keep them kind and respectful. Let's continue to share. I'm also on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. On Twitter, I'm at Grizzly Gisela, and everywhere else, I'm Grizzly True Crime. So if you'd be willing to connect with me there and share what I share, let's keep getting the word out and say their names. Cinsere and Classic Pettis. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.